Hey guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back to the M4J Network here on OpenTTD. I'm still a bit under the weather, my voice is still a bit funny, some people might not even notice that. I remember last time I had a funny voice, people in the comments said they didn't even notice, which I guess is a good thing, but yeah, I notice, and yeah, my priorities for video making right now are slightly elsewhere, so apologies for this video being like a week and a half, if not 2 weeks late. There is still a plan to do a double header this week, so straight after this video there will be a Transport Fever 2 video going live, both of which hopefully will be premiered. So if that is the case, I'll be saying hi in the chat right about now. But yeah, I'm still under the weather, so bear with me with my voice. If I stop talking for any period of time, it's because I've had to mute my microphone to cough my lungs up. But otherwise, we should be a-okay. Welcome also then to a slightly satirical video. So those of you in the UK, you'll know what's going on right now. There's a petrol shortage, he says in inverted commas. Technically there is, technically there isn't. There wasn't to start with. It was a supply shortage rather than an actual fuel shortage. I can't speak. Thoughtage. Basically there was a driver issue. There weren't enough drivers to deliver everywhere. The media got hold of that story, made it sound like there was a fuel shortage, therefore the entire nation went out and started panic buying basically any sort of fuel. I think there's people who didn't even bother checking what type of fuel their car has, or van, or whatever it is. They just started filling jerry cans as well as their own vehicles. And then because of that, there is now a fuel shortage. It's amazing, isn't it, how the actions of people can affect just things like that. It's incredible. Like last year it was toilet roll, this year it's fuel. So I was trying to think of ideas for an episode that I could record whilst not feeling myself, and I had the news on and I kept hearing these stories, and I myself have been driving around here, there and everywhere, genuinely trying to fill my car up because my car was actually getting quite low. And for those of you that don't know, I've recently moved to Kent. I'm not from Kent, I'm from Hertfordshire, so getting home was a bit tricky with an empty car. So me driving around pretty much the entirety of the county, plus seeing stories on the news about people panic buying fuel, or even those who genuinely need it and can't get hold of it for various reasons, gave me an idea for what you're seeing on the screen right now, which is an oil refinery. Brand new oil refinery. This is the point where I would normally have the game open and I would go over to it and tell you about the name of it and things like that, but I completely forgot to open the game before I started recording this, so bear with me. I can't remember the name of the oil refinery, but it is an oil refinery. There are 16 platforms, or sidings if you want to call them that, 8 at the bottom, 8 at the top. There's a hill in between, and I've tried to stuff the site with as much eye candy as possible without using objects. Pretty much all of it is station tiles, and overall I think it looks pretty convincing. There is obviously an oil refinery industry that I add towards the end of the episode, but I think little sites like this, so there's a few industry sites that I've built across the map. Some are more convincing than others. I think the ones that aren't very good are probably just going to get quietly removed at some point, maybe rebuilt, something like that. I haven't fully decided yet. But yeah, at this point I'm trying to find some more oil tanks or something like that. Not so much for actual practical use, but just for set decoration, as it were. And it turns out there aren't many, if any. A lot of them are industry based, and I didn't want to install any more industries because I think I've already screwed up my game quite a lot by doing that. So I have this power station industry, which I really don't know is actually whether or not that's actually functional or not. If anyone knows, let me know. I think I installed a new version of is it FIRS, F-I-R-S, like 2 years ago on the save, and it broke a few things, so I quickly uninstalled it in a panic, but there's some remnants left behind. One of those seems to be the power station. That it apparently accepts was it oil, coal and uranium, I think are the three that it accepts, and that seems to be in line with what a power station actually is. So maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, who knows. I might try and use that one day. I almost built one here, but I thought, nah, the refinery's enough. I don't need to go overkill on it. So I left it as is. But you can kind of see the layout here now. So the bottom side is, or the south side, the lower side, is for oil drop-off. And then the top side is for petrol and chemical pickup. And that's pretty much it. That's the entire site in a nutshell. The idea being that the refinery is built between the two sets of platforms. You can see I'm building a lorry station here as well, or truck stop, which I think I've built it too big. I've done my usual thing. I had a space to fill, and boy did I fill it. But I've come up with some other like internal roads and things like that, which kind of disguise the fact that it's way too big. And then the refinery goes at the top of the hill in sort of the northeast corner of the site, and that's where the oil goes to be processed. We've also got some docks that will be added. You'll see me in a minute waiting for the water to fill up the channel or the basin that I just dug, so that I can place some docks. And then I've also got a brand new shipyard that I build in the southeast corner. And again, you see me spend way too long with the pipes station tiles, trying to make that look nice. Basically, I recorded this whilst back home. I was cat sitting, believe it or not, cat sitting and house sitting, which is more fun than it sounds. And I was just sat on the sofa one night, and I thought I could record a time lapse now. And I just had this thing of watching the news again and seeing what people were doing in the world, and thought, you know, the network doesn't have much in terms of oil and petrol. We have lots of industries around the map that accept oil and petrol, and chemicals for that matter, but I don't actually have anything that outright produces it. We have that little ship system by Moningpool Falls, where oil is taken from the oil rigs across the west side of the map, and then they're taken to Moningpool Falls, and then we have some chemicals from there that I believe just goes straight to the aluminium plant. This is something new and different. And actually the temporary plan for this now is to have oil tanker trains that run between Moningpool Falls and here, basically across the entire north section of the map. There's going to be a new little link line that bypasses Gronwell Superior, so freight trains can take this little link line rather than having to go into and out of the station, which is about right in considering the real world. Either that, or maybe these freight trains go via one of the southeastern main lines, join up with the coastal line, maybe going through Bar City. I don't know if that would be very practical. I don't think that would be very practical at all, actually. But if we were to do that, then it would go up the east coast. As you saw, there's entrances to the north and the south here, so either would work. It's just a case of finding the right one. But yeah, where was I going with that? I can't even remember. Oh yeah, having some oil trains running across the network, and then also having some chemical trains running along, and then also having some petrol trains running along. Is plastic even still a thing? I can't remember now. I can't remember. But yeah, having lots of different types of freight starting on the network now would be great. Which does lead me into my conversation topic for this month, which is to do with freight logistics. I completely forgot my train of thought there as well. So you might remember a while ago now, I'll try that sentence again. You might remember a while ago now, I mentioned a company called Orion. They are using old Class 319 train sets to create parcel logistics trains. And they're running tests as we speak in and out of Houston, and it seems to be a success. Basically, trains will go to conventional railway stations like Euston or Birmingham New Street, Manchester Piccadilly, Liverpool Lime Street, forgetting all the names of stations now. God, it's been a long time since I talked about railways. They would go to stations like that. At either end of their journey, there'll be small electric vans with pallets, like rolling pallets attached to them. The Pallets will be rolled off the electric vehicles, straight onto the train, and off they go. And then at the other end, pallets will be rolled off the train, onto the electric vehicle, and off they go. And the electric vehicles are only really for like last mile journeys. Because obviously you can't have a train that drops off at every single house in London, for example. It's just not possible. So I like this plan. I think it sounds like a really, really good plan. I think my most preferred option is to have all logistics switch over to this. And actually, this fuel crisis that we have right now highlights the fact that we rely too much on manual labour still for some of these industries. So, if a truck drivers union were to ever go on strike, we'd be screwed because we rely so much on deliveries by road still. Whereas we've got these companies. Now, I'm not saying Orion are going to start running trains with oil tankers on the back or petrol tankers, but it gives you an idea as to what if we started using rail more to convey these commodities. Why am I saying it really weird? What if we use trains more to convey these goods, basically? So we could have tanker trains. So, petrol is brought into ports. It's not dug up out of the ground or anything. Most of our oil comes from the North Sea. And I'm trying to remember where the rigs are. They're sort of roughly level with the northeast of England, sometimes a little bit north of that. Aberdeen especially is the oil city. My phone's not on silent, which I thought it was. Apologies for that. Yeah, so most of our oil comes from the North Sea, is where I was going with that. What if it was shipped to somewhere like Aberdeen and then loaded onto a train and then distributed across the country? So half the train might go to London, for example, half might go to Birmingham, or there might be a central distribution centre somewhere around, the Midlands, and then from there, different trains could go to different locations. They don't have to be huge trains. They could just be, the whole just enough. Was it just enough mentality? I can't remember what it's called now. When you do lean manufacturing, just in time. That's what it's called. Just in time. So one petrol tanker could probably be one vehicle on a train. I imagine their sizes are roughly the same. The train vehicles might be slightly smaller, but they can travel at a faster speed. So on that logic, the capacity would be roughly the same. And this, I'm just spitballing here. I did have a plan in my head and I completely forgot about it. But I think something like that could work. And then if you have distribution centres near rail yards, so for example, there's a new rail yard being built near Radlett, which is near where I'm from. Why not have a storage siding there for petrol and then use pipes to connect it to the local petrol stations? I don't know how feasible that is. I know that fuel is carried through pipes for hundreds, if not thousands of miles in some places around the world. And I believe there is still a pipeline that connects the UK to France. I don't know where it runs now, but it used to run through the Romney Marshes and that area and then across the channel. What that proves to me is it is feasible. I know that was used for the war effort back in the 40s, but it is still a feasible thing. But I wonder how economical it would be and also how much resistance it would have if we started switching more of our logistics over to rail. The infrastructure is mostly there. It used to be carried by rail. A lot of the yards that we used to use for that don't exist anymore. Most of them are housing estates, which is weird, but it's a thing. Some are museums. Some are station car parks now. There's a lot of change that's happened, which is why I think distribution centres sort of out of town would be better rather than having, if you've got a petrol station right next to the railway, it would be obviously easier to build a drop-off site right next to the petrol station, but that's not necessarily feasible. So having it, within a local area where there's sort of 5 to 6 towns or cities around it, and then being able to use pipes to do that last mile, that's probably a good way of doing it. The only problem, resistance-wise, I think it would face is truck drivers who are still working, and that's obviously something you've got to be wary of. You don't want to put anyone out of a job, but at the same time, if there is a genuine shortage of workers right now, then maybe it is time looking at to look at an alternative means to actually carry these goods and fuel in this case that we rely on so much. There's a few political issues as well that's as to why some things aren't as readily available as they used to be. I'm not going to get into that. You guys know the rules around here. We don't talk about politics. We talk about sport and railways and theme parks and anything else that isn't in any way related to politics, because it's less of a faff, believe me. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, lost some friends because of it. Hey ho. Anyway, that pretty much does it for the satirical side of the video. As I said, it's not really like tongue-in-cheek, like, oh, we're running short of petrol, so I built a petrol station or anything like that. There's a genuine issue going on in the world right now. And it is mainly the UK, I've noticed at the moment, this particular issue. But there are lots of countries around the world that are affected by supply issues. And it can happen out of nowhere. One of the things I kept thinking about the last few weeks is, how come it's only now that we're starting to realise this? And I think it is because, genuinely, we do have this just-in-time mentality. You know, trucks arrive just when they're needed, and one day they won't because there's no driver available, and it's only then that you kind of go, oh crap, we needed that. And that's why we now have people queuing for tens if not hundreds of miles for a petrol station. So far I've not been affected too badly, and hopefully you guys haven't either, but it's only a matter of time before something else runs out. And that's where we're at right now. We're starting to run out of things. Now, to use another one of my interests very quickly, F1 have recently announced a supposed 100% sustainable fuel that they will be using in their cars moving forward. I don't think it's anytime soon. I think it's from like 2023, maybe, that it will be rolled out to begin with. And one of the selling points they used for this new fuel was, we won't just use it in F1, it can also be used on the roads too. If that is the case, first of all, I think it does still contain oil products, so it's not like the oil industry is suddenly going to collapse or anything. But it is interesting to see that F1 is actually leading the charge in this getting away from the current fuel level or the current fuel type that we're using. And it's going to be intriguing as to where they're actually going with that. I know there's a lot of drivers like Sebastian Vettel who speak out against the environmental damage that F1 can cause. So you know, there might be something from that, and if it does then become a 100% sustainable fuel like they've promised, then that could be the future of road fuel as well, which would be very, very cool. Obviously there's different types of fuel right now. There's unleaded and there's diesel, and I think there's like 4 types of unleaded these days as well, which is very, very confusing when you're trying to get to a petrol station and you see they've got a type of unleaded, and then you start thinking, is that the type my car uses, or is that something completely different? My car hasn't blown up yet, so I assume it's fine. But yeah, sustainable fuel is where I was going with this, and you know, maybe using biofuel in the future. I think already that is a suitable replacement for some diesel vehicles, not all. I know there's a lot of lorries now and buses especially that use natural gas, and there's a lot more battery-powered technology being used now, and that's also affecting the rail industry. Plus, also the rail industry uses diesel, and we're starting. I think all rail vehicles must move away from diesel by 2030. I think was the deadline. So there's work being done. There's still plenty of work to be done, but at least it's starting to happen now, and hopefully from that we end up in a situation where a fuel crisis like this never happens again. Because you know, I've been reading stories about ambulances trying to get into fuel stations and people like revolting against it because they're cutting the queue, as it were, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. If you see an emergency vehicle trying to get fuel, you move your backside out of the way, basically, and you let it go ahead of you. Don't care about the queue. Obviously, if people's lives are now in danger because of it, then it's gotten way out of hand and needs to be dealt with immediately. But yeah, that's basically it for my rant slash satire slash whatever you want to call this. You see that the shipyard in the background there is taking place. I've tried to make it look like the refinery still. It is a separate station, Ships will only stop here when they're waiting, basically. I've tried to make it look like the pipelines here are for refueling rather than for loading and unloading. I think I've done a good job. It's very much dependent. The thumbnail probably does a better job of showing what this looks like than I ever could, let's be honest. But yeah, the oil refinery is up and running, and at some point, maybe off camera, I'll start adding some trains to this. I'll start looking at the different routes and see which is the quickest route between Moddingpool Falls and here, or at least the most direct route. Doesn't necessarily have to be the quickest, because freight tends to take a back seat these days on the railways anyway. And I will keep looking around for new GRFs that I think might be able to help me out here. You can see actually there I'm just changing the dock design to make it look a little bit more realistic, because I wish there was a way to have like a passenger dock and then a freight dock like in Transport Fever, because you can then make them look very, very different. There might be a way, I've just not found it yet. If there is a way, please do let me know. Eye candy is obviously a way of doing it with objects and stuff, but I'd like to be able to do it without that, if possible. But yeah, that does it for this episode, guys. Sorry if it's been a bit off track, if you'd excuse the pun, and sorry as well if my voice has been awful and if I sound really sniffly and horrible and if you found it very hard to listen to me. If that's the case anyway, then I can't really help you with that, I'm afraid. But if today especially, then yeah, I do apologise. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're enjoying the series so far. Drop some comments down below with ideas for future episodes, any ideas for eye candy and stuff as well. I know there are some that aren't available on the online downloader, so if there's any other ones on the forums or anything that you think might help me out here, do let me know down below. Besides all that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. It really does help me out. It's always nice to get new subscribers. I know my channel's stagnated a little bit recently. I apologise for that. I will explain what's been going on, don't worry. So if anyone wants to know about that, stay tuned for a blog or something in the future. But yeah, if you have already subscribed to the channel and you've stuck with me this far, thank you very much for your continued support. It really does mean a lot to me. And until next time, I will see you soon.